Men have read it. What's the most hurtful thing a girl has ever said to you? Story 1. I'm not a good-looking man, so imagine my surprise when a beautiful girl approaches me in a crowded bar. This had never happened before. She beckoned me close and said, "Hey, do you mind if I kiss you? It's a dare." Then looked over at her table of friends in the distance who were in absolute hysterics. Sure, I mumbled, not out of nerves for once, but out of sadness. I soon realized that I was just the butt of another joke. I didn't want to kiss her at all, but I'm socially awkward at the best of times, and saying no would have prolonged the situation even longer. No, I didn't enjoy it. As her lips met mine, I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. Her friends were cheering across the crowded bar, and my own mates were starting to crack up. I wanted to disappear. Other people say much nastier things to me in public all the time, but this was the most hurtful. It was something about how quickly her words lifted me to cloud 9 and then dropped me back to reality. This incident happened about 5 years ago when I was in my mid to late 20s, at a time when I was putting myself out there for the first time since high school. So yeah, it was a setback at the time to realize that some people still act like that. But while unpleasant, it certainly wasn't a life-defining moment, and I kept putting myself out there. I'm still socially awkward at times, and I'm still not an attractive man, but I regularly challenge myself in different facets of my life, and lots of fantastic opportunities have come out of it. My confidence grows every year, and maybe one day, that will translate into a romantic relationship. And if it doesn't, then that's not the end of the world. Screw you would have been the best response, although hopefully he isn't put in that position again. Story 2. You're like perfect boyfriend material. I just wish you were better looking. My friend's twin sister said that to me when I bumped into her on my way home from the bar with my workmates. To be entirely honest, it absolutely crushed me. When her brother asked me what was up, and I told him, but he couldn't comprehend why I was so stricken by it. What? That's stupid. That's a compliment. No, man, it's not. The first part is, the second isn't. Story 3. When I was about 20, one of my best friends came around and was upset that a guy had rejected her and said she wasn't attractive. She was crying and slightly drunk. As I hugged her, she said, "Now we understand what it must feel like to be you." Oh, jeez. Best friend? Really? Ouch. I get that she was drunk, but dang, that must have been hard to hear. Story 4. About twice I've gone, "It isn't your personality or figure, I'm just not into black guys." I'm not mad. People are entitled to their preferences. It just sucks that the only thing wrong is something I have no ability to change. I know that they are horrible people. In fact, I'm still good friends with one of them. I just moved on. There wasn't any need to get bothered by it. Story 5. I was 14, on board a ro-ro ship in the middle of the Adriatic, on our way to Greece. It was really friggin' hot, so I decided against sleeping in our cabin. I took my sleeping bag topside and installed it myself. Half an hour later, a couple of French girls show up. I was almost asleep but heard one of them say, "Hey, there's someone sleeping there." To which another girl replied, "Maybe he's pretty," in French. Immediately after those words, the whole world erupts into a blinding white light. The girl had taken a flashlight and shone it directly into my face. Then she spoke that single, terrible word. None. That wasn't the biggest problem. They were a bit older, which may have played a role as well, but it took me a long time to get over this experience, particularly the tone of her voice. I heard someone say, "Hey, there's a guy in there," in an interesting voice. They sound like they're in my age category. Who knows what may happen? Then one wonders aloud whether I'm good looking or not. Thoughts start racing through a hormone-enraged mind. Holy crap, this might actually work. What if she thinks I am cute? Better yet, what if her friends think the same thing? Is this how I'm going to lose it the first time? 3 or 4 French chicks? And while I'm pondering the way I'm going to tell my friends what happened to me during summer, a Nagasaki-like eruption of unrelenting light overloads my senses, and she says, dismissively and definitively, "None." Well, so much for teenage hubris. Story 6. I have one sister. She could have been a model. She's gorgeous. Perfect features, and me, well, let's just say that I am certain God has a sense of humor. That dude was laughing when he made me. I always kind of knew that, but it wasn't until college that someone blatantly pointed it out. This guy, who I was not dating or trying to date, just a study partner, recognized my sister from a pic on my phone. Him. "Oh hey, you're so-and-so's sister." Me. "Yeah." Him. "Too bad you don't have her looks, cause I would have gone to town with you already." Me. "Why don't you screw yourself?" I quit studying with him. He failed English, and if you read this, I'm not sorry, Chad. For someone named Chad, he sure isn't acting like one. Imagine insulting your study partner. Like, what do you expect would happen?
Hey there. If you haven't heard already, a few friends and I recently launched Rufus Rugs, your go-to destination for premium custom hand-tufted rugs. Looking to add a touch of your favorite anime like Naruto to your space? We've got you covered. Or perhaps you're a die-hard Pokemon guy and want bus toys showcased for everyone to admire. No matter your style, we can bring your vision to life. Click the first link in the description to explore more.
Story 7. You're a selfish guy with no personality. You only do things that benefit you without thinking about the feelings of others. My mom and I decided that I could not leave with my wife and kids in England to look for a job in my country of birth. Don't think I'll ever forgive her for that one. Story 8. Nothing. When you make plans or they text you wanting to do something as friends and the time comes and they don't show, you put your time into trying to make a get-together work while they completely dissed it. They lost nothing from doing this. In their mind, they did nothing wrong. Their world is still all right. For you, though, it's time wasted preparing, telling other friends that no, you can't hang out because you've already got plans. It's a betrayal on all levels. You've lost time in your life, sometimes money if you bought a ticket. Relationship-wise, you aren't any better friends with them or anyone else. This goes for everyone, but I've had girls do it to me the most. Story 9. Dated a girl for around a year, and I just brought her home to meet my family during winter break. Since my family lives in Hawaii, I stayed behind an extra 2 weeks to spend time at home before the next semester started. 3 days after she got back from her visit, she decided to break up with me, over Facebook. Really took me by surprise. This was the first real relationship I had ever had, the first girl I ever loved. I took it pretty hard. After a pretty rough, on me, 2 weeks of being confused, I gave her a call to set up a time I could pick up a few personal belongings I had left in her apartment. For safety reasons, she had a lock on her door. She told me the last time we spoke in person, "I don't know why you're taking this so hard. You shouldn't let someone mean this much to you in your life. Just move on. It's no big deal. You'll be fine." Might not seem that bad to some, but that will stick with me forever. At the time, it felt like I would never get better. I have to say, though, it was probably the nicest thing she ever did for me. Got myself together and worked on myself. Honestly, I couldn't be happier than I am right now. Sometimes things happen for a reason. There's never been a more applicable time to say, "It's not you, it's me." She can let herself mean anything to him. That's something wrong with her, probably a serious thing wrong with her. That's going to chase her forever. Story 10. I love you, she said as I dropped her off at her trashy apartment. Allegedly, I could never come in when her roommates were home since they were hostile and very embarrassing people, so it went on for months. Later, it would turn out it was because she didn't live there. Her other boyfriend lived there. Her apartment was a short walk around the corner from there. Apparently, it was too long of a walk, so she would simply have me deliver her to her other man. She would kiss me goodbye, say she loved me, less than a minute later be wrapped around another guy. Story 11. I had a girlfriend that I lived with for a year before I moved off to college, but we stayed together. We got into a big fight really quickly after that. She was legitimately trying to make me break up with her. She said every mean thing she could think of, short of one untouchable subject to get me to say I was done. When we were together, she had been pregnant but had a miscarriage. During our fight, she said, "I'm glad I had that miscarriage. It would have been a terrible father." As someone who had lost a parent at a young age, I have always known that I would do my best to give my kids the world when that time comes. I was not against the idea of us having kids together. I loved her. When she said that, it cut deep. Fortunately, she only suspected that he'd be a terrible father. She sounds like a terrible human being for waging psychological warfare like that. I wouldn't want someone like that to be the mom of my kid. Also, I wouldn't want you to finish watching this video without leaving a like in the video and subscribing to the channel either. Story 12. It doesn't matter how blonde or athletic you are, you would still have been exterminated by Hitler. I have cerebral palsy. Well, it was a bit over a year ago now, so I can't remember all the details. We were hanging out at my place and talking about stuff. She then started laughing and said that she thought about something awful, or she could have said that she thought of an awful joke. Can't remember. Asked her what it was and then she said it. So in a way, it was kind of my fault since I asked, but it's still a horrible thing to say, or even think about, to be honest. Story 13. After proposing to her, getting engaged, and spending wonderful months with her, I had to go abroad for 6 months for work. About 3 months in, she said, "I feel like I made a mistake. I don't feel like I'm that close to you or I love you anymore." By text. The way I felt at the moment was indescribable. A few months later, she came back to me to tell me that she actually loves me and wants me as a friend. Hurts terribly when you're still emotionally recovering. A month later, she got engaged to another guy, who was already the source of arguments when I was still with her. My entire life felt like a lie at this point. I felt like the 3 years I spent with her were just a big lie and this guy had probably already been around for a long time. To save me from depression, I decided that I wouldn't continue asking myself questions about, was it actual love or was she with him lying the whole time, and chose to trust her. Still terrible though. Story 14. A bit of a backstory, but the case had a bit of poetic justice as well. This was in college, and because I tend to have a large vocabulary, the girl that ended up becoming my fiancée thought I was from some rich family out in suburbia, as opposed to a scholarship student. Anyways, long story short, she begins to prepare to move into my rent-controlled apartment, and disillusionment begins setting in immediately. She sees she's not going to be getting her white picket fence fantasy right off the bat, and all effort into the relationship plummets. She's basically chilling at the apartment online when not in class. I come home from work one day to find she's been riding the town bike in our bed. I tell the dude to get out of my place before I decided to end him and tell the cops he was assaulting my fiancée, and begin having it out verbally with a soon-to-be ex, and that's where she dropped the bomb. Well, if you were a real man, you'd be much taller, schoolboy. Now, my height has never been a sensitive topic to me. I've always found ways to make it work to my advantage. But hearing that come from a woman who had basically been such a leech on my resources and time, so she could have fun on my dime, was infuriating. But I managed to keep myself under control. Well, to be honest, I'm not a fan of women who rub their butts up all over town, but at least she has control over who she sleeps with. The good thing about them, though, you don't ever marry one. She teared up, called me an and said I had only myself to blame. Ha! I shook my head and went, "True, I am. But all of this, today, that's on you. And I am through with your lies. Get your stuff and get out." Bonus round. She showed up on my doorstep 6 months later with a baby in tow, trying to get a place to stay. She got kicked out of the place she had been staying at because she got caught cheating. Again. When I told her to get out, she looked down at the baby and tried to convince me it could be mine. Her response was, "Woman, do you expect me to believe a white woman and an Irishman would form a mulatto baby? Get off my doorstep before I call the cops." Haven't heard from her since. That last line was too good. Can't even imagine her thought process in convincing him the baby's his. Story 15. When I was a sophomore in college, I had a friend with benefits that started freshman year. We hadn't hung out in a while and she kept texting saying we needed to get together, so we ended up planning a study date on a Tuesday or something. She comes to my place and we legit study for a bit, then things take a fun turn. We just made out because she didn't want to jump in where we had left off months before. Anyways, I'm messing with her phone and she receives a text that says, "How was the pity date?" And I see her previous text calling it just a pity date. I pretend like I didn't see it and she leaves 30 minutes later. When walking her to her car, she leans in for a kiss and I turn away saying, "I think that may be one too many for a pity date." Her face goes to horror and she's speechless. I walk away and she calls out my name like in a bad movie. Never spoke to her again, and now she's fat. Story 16. On a night out with some friends about 7 years ago, we were outside in the beer garden as it was a very nice day, and 2 of my friends were smokers at the time. Anyway, we were outside drinking and having a good time, and when my friends excused themselves to get more drinks, I overheard a couple of girls chatting on the table next to me. Basically, one of the girls was complaining about how she'd been single for a while now and jokingly said that she was desperate. Her friend says to her again in a joking way something along the lines of, "You just need to pick one guy here and kiss him." She said, "Go on then, who would you choose?" Her friend points at me and says, "What about that guy over there with the long hair?" And she goes, "Oh good God, I'm not that desperate." Okay, it wasn't directly said to me, but it still hurt. The tone in her voice wasn't jokey at all. She was serious. Jeez, do people just say that out loud, knowing full well the person they're talking smack about can hear them? Story 17. Well, this is something my current girlfriend said like 3 years ago. I used to be super jealous because she was not the greatest girlfriend, as she had a crush on Josh Hutcherson. Like she was seriously in love with him, and that's not a joke. One day she told me that she would rather marry him than me, can't wait until she can be called Mrs. Hutcherson, etc. That broke my little 15-year-old heart. Story 18. Not me, but a girl I know read a text she sent to her ex-boyfriend. "You're the most pathetic person I've ever met. It's no wonder your parents don't want to have a relationship with you. You work out at the gym so people will like you and not talk behind your back, but in reality, everyone says how much of a loser you are. You're a balding 30-year-old with a physique that no one could be attracted to and never will. You're hung like a baby, and most of my friends think you're actually gay." A part of me died after reading that. Women know how to uncover a man's deepest insecurities and pulverize their self-esteem. Honestly, I'm not sure I'd ever recover from something like that. God be with you, man. I think she went too hard, like she was scrambling for things to add, especially at the end there. Gives the impression she's just saying anything to cut at him. Story 19. This is a long one. 1. I had a blind date for coffee. I was driving through traffic and realized I was going to be 10 to 15 minutes late, so about 15 minutes before the scheduled time, I sent a text apologizing and saying I was going to be 10 to 15 minutes late. She texted me back saying that our mutual friend, the one who was setting us up, finally sent her a picture of me and that I didn't need to bother coming. I asked why. As I had already driven the majority of the way, her response was, "You're not good looking enough to wait for." Call ended there and then. I got coffee anyway and a hot dog. It was a really good hot dog and I regret nothing about that day. 2. In high school, I had a huge crush on a classmate of mine. I spent hours making some crafted animals for her. She wanted to be a vet, as a Valentine's Day gift. On the day, I gave her the animals and some chocolates and asked her if she would be my Valentine. She looked me straight in the eyes with nothing but utter terror. She left the gifts on the ground, stood, backed up a few feet, then walked away without saying a single word to me. We had many classes together for the next year and a half of school. Fast forward 10 years later, I'm going through my old yearbook. In it, I found out that when some friends were signing my yearbook, she slipped a letter inside. The letter was simple and short, saying she apologized for her behavior and that I was a really nice guy. She explained that I scared her and she didn't know how to react back then. Turns out she had a friend pick up the gifts without my noticing, and she really liked them. I let her know I got the letter, tried to acknowledge the situation as it was, went out and got some coffee and a hot dog. It was a very good hot dog and I regret nothing. 3. At a bar, I started chatting with a woman next to me. I asked if I could buy her a drink. She said there was no way she would be ever interested in me, so I would just be wasting her time. Felt like she was evaluating my entire worth as a human and judging it to be utterly beneath any possible redemption because of a 3-minute conversation with me. Somehow I was so worthless she could sense it near immediately. Got a bar hot dog this time and beer. I regret nothing. 4. Had a girlfriend for almost 3 years, and we were discussing if we each wanted to have kids or not. She knew she wanted kids, and she had wanted them ever since she could remember. I told her that I didn't feel that way and that best, I would stay and raise a kid. However, I had to be honest and state that I didn't think having kids was something I really wanted. She paused a bit, looked at me and said, "But you'd be such a good provider." I know it isn't a mean thing to say, but I was expressing what I wanted and she turned it into something that she wanted. She wanted a provider for her kids and some guy who could fit that bill for her. So we broke up after that, and she took all my Dungeons and Dragons stuff when I was away at work and moved 7 states away. No hot dogs were had. She took those too. So many regrets. 5. Middle school dance. I asked the prettiest girl I had ever known until then if she would go to the dance with me. She said no. That was fine. It was worth the risk and I was feeling like $1,000,000 for even getting the courage to ask her. A day later, she comes up to me and says that she would like to go to the dance with me. Fast forward to the dance, and she kind of ignores me the whole time to talk to another classmate of mine. Finally, the last slow dance of the evening, and she approaches me. We danced, and it was amazing. I'm not a super emotional guy, but it was time-slowing, adrenaline-pumping, face-flushing, time-traveling, and amazing. At the end, she kisses my cheek and walks right over to the same classmate. I hear her say to him, "There, I did it. Can I have my stuff back now?" That same classmate repeatedly pantsed me throughout the entire year of gym class, before and after the dance. I never understood what his deal was. He's a banker now. No hot dogs. Some even call it Frankfurter, Wiener, or Red Hot. This guy uses it as a regret neuralizer. Story 20. Nothing when she ended the relationship. It was in a pretty serious relationship and she abruptly ended it. I knew something was up the last few weeks of it, but she never made the time to talk about it. And she ended it over the phone with lame excuses and half-truths. She avoided talking to me for the next month because I was trying to figure out what the hell happened. While all of the things said in this thread are hurtful, being thrown aside like a piece of garbage with little to no explanation was extremely difficult to heal from. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy Most Hurtful Thing You've Accidentally Overheard About Yourself. Story 4 was just sad. See you in that video.